Welcome to the Richard Stewart Show. My name is Richard Stewart. I'm a former national team player for the Canadian national team who won a silver medal for Canada in the 91 games in Sheffield, England. I also played at St. Joseph's University NCAA Division I in the Atlantic 10 Conference.
Stewart again down the lane, no foul, they let him have it. Richard has 19.
Currently, I own Advanced Basketball Canada, a program that teaches kids how to play basketball from the fundamentals to the more advanced. Two of the notable players that I've trained are Dillon who plays for the Memphis Grizzlies,
and Brooks will go and jam it with the right hand off the setup by Moran.
And Ignas Brazdeikiz,
Brazdeikiz to steal, some contact, and we play on. Brazdeikiz,
who plays for the New York Knicks. I also train ladies, and the ladies that are in university and have played in Europe as well. So I have a lot of ladies who have trained and are playing basketball. Welcome to the Richard Stewart Show. My name is Richard Stewart. Hey, true believers, we're back at it again. You're in the studio with myself and my co-host, Kayla Davis. Okay, so here's what's going to happen today. A great guest we have, a man who you all see on the Raptors telecast. He actually was a former player at Oakwood. You guys didn't know that he was also principal of a school here in Toronto and has helped so many people in terms of the basketball community. Please help me to welcome Mr. Paul Jones. Hey, Paul, how are you, sir?
I'm great, Richard. Great to talk to you, and it's great to see how you've carved out a career from that young guy that we worked on the jump hook with back in the days at Oakwood, and you know, you really did well. You became a great player, and it's good to see you giving back to the game and giving back to the community. So I'm very, very proud of you, young man.
Well, thank you, sir. I thank you for that. You know, I'm blushing right here if you can't notice people out there in TV land. And It's not about me, it's about you today. I want to celebrate you because, yes, I remember at Oakwood when I came to Oakwood, yourself and Mark. Now, you guys are the Gumbos of TV for Canada. You guys know that, right? you guys are the Gumbos of TV for Canadians. So I remember at Oakwood when I came to Oakwood and you showed me that move. And I used that jump hook and killed people with it internationally. And guys of my size could shoot it over 7-footers and torture young people in the key. You taught me that stuff, and I really appreciate you for that.
Richard, I always wanted to get into coaching. You know, when I went to university and finished my master's degree in sports psychology, and I came out and I was working with Terry Thompson at Oakwood, I really wanted to get into coaching. I felt it was such a noble profession, a noble thing to do, shaping young lives, teaching them the game. You know, most of the things that we try to teach kids, we learn through sports: hard work, dedication, teamwork, discipline.
Yes.
You know, handling adversity, ups and downs in life. That's what sports teaches you, and I really wanted to get into the coaching. The problem was nobody valued it back then. It's not valued the way it is now, and I'm thrilled to see the way it's come to the forefront. What you're doing with advanced basketball, people like Ro Russell, people like Wayne Dawkins, people that are doing things and being caretakers and spreading the game and you know, helping it to grow. So. You know, I kind of feel like I missed the boat a little bit, but at the same time, there were other people on the boat that have jumped off and you know, got their own boats going in the right direction.
Well, you know something, Paul? It's great to hear you say that about valuing people and how coaching has changed, and that's why we have so much great players coming out of Canada. A lot of us that went south of the border, we learned some things, and we went internationally, and we wanted to come back and help people. I remember coming up to Mississauga, and I saw some kids, they couldn't do a spin dribble. They were dribbling with one hand, and they had their eyes down when they were dribbling. I'm like, no. That's why I started advanced basketball, actually, to help some kids. So you're on the right track there, and what you're doing with the Raptor. Well, let me back up a little bit. Tell me about your transition from being an educator, a principal, to getting a job at MLSE, to get a job at the Raptors. What was that about? Because I wasn't in the country then. I was in Philadelphia then, and I came back when the Raptors were established. I wasn't here in the country. How did that transition take place for you?
Well, Richard, I go back to where I wanted to coach. And where do you coach? You coach kids. Where do you find kids? You find them in a school. So I got into teaching and helped at the grassroots level, grade 7 and 8, and younger kids, grade 4, grade 5, teaching fundamentals and teaching them about the game and that kind of stuff. And then I moved up. I became a vice principal and a principal, but all that time I'd never lost my love and my passion for the game. So I was working at TSN while still doing a little bit of coaching on the side.
Okay, I didn't know you were at TSN. Okay.
Yeah, the sports angle still had me. And I just, as we are learners, I just started to learn the TV business and the radio business while still hanging on to my love of basketball and sports in general.
Right.
And then, I got a big break in '92 covering the Dream Team in Barcelona.
Wow.
And then in '94, the World Championships were supposed to come to, were supposed to be in Yugoslavia, but civil war was ravaging the country.
Yes.
They moved them to Toronto, 1994, the World Basketball Championships, and they asked me to do the radio broadcast. I did the radio broadcast. It went well. I did not know Isaiah Thomas, John Bitove, and the Raptors syndicate was listening, and there I was, part of the first Canadian broadcast.
Wow.
For the Raptors. And I've just, when you get something good, Richard, and they say in Jamaica, you hung on panating.
You hung on panating. Yes.
I was just hanging on, and it's turned into something great for me.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's wonderful.
Yeah, that's great to hear, especially as someone. I was born in 1995, so I'm one of those the people that I hear about these things later once I understand a little bit more about basketball. But yeah, first of all, thanks for sharing your journey. I as someone that's coming up and doing stuff now within the basketball community, I just want to make sure that we continue to pay tribute to the Mavericks and all the people that are allowing us to continue to do what we do. And leading with that, I just wanted to know more in terms of now that you've been around basketball as a player, you've done some things in terms of TV broadcasting. First of all, what did you think of that all-female broadcast the other day, which was pretty cool?
It was great.
Yeah.
And I will point to you as somebody, my daughter was born in 97, and, she's grown up around sports, and, she played varsity sports at university, and is now in a postgrad, got her degree, and now is in a postgrad program learning broadcasting. And, I look at young women like yourself that have, kind of taken this to another level and have helped people find their voice.
Yes.
From their own determination. I look at your accomplishments, and those are things that we need. And I thought it was great. I thought it was, great to have, an all-female broadcast. I think the next step is just full integration. So we don't look at it and say, we have a female broadcast.
Yeah.
No, we have a broadcast.
Yes.
It has people that are black, people that are white, people that are male. Okay.
So great, yeah. I want to see that as well, Paul, where they say, okay, this is just a broadcast. It's not a female, or this is just a coach. It's not the first black coach.
Yeah.
Just to get to that level of understanding in our society would cover so many things for young people instead of having to walk over a wall. Yeah. We want to get to a point where they just walk into something. And that's why guys like me, when I went to Philadelphia, went to play NCAA basketball, people were like, well, you're Canadian. Do you guys live in igloos up there? And I looked at the guy like, are you kidding me? Don't you guys know? And when I went there and I started dunking on people, they're like, are there guys like you up there? Coaches were asking me that. And because of guys like you and Wayne Yearwood and Terry Thompson that helped me, that's how I got to, and that's when these guys came after. I was trying to tell people, yeah, Wiggins is great. I love to see these young people do stuff. But I said there was basketball before Wiggins. And we had to lay the ground floor for these guys. Don't you agree?
Totally. You could always come to Canada and get a great player. And I remember the story, Jalen Rose talking about how he was the ball boy on a team from Detroit that came to play us up in Canada when I was coaching the Metro High School All-Star team. And it was a close game, and they had Division I players, guys. Michael Talley, who went to Michigan. They had big-time players, and we were right there with them. You could always come to Canada and find a player. It was an untapped territory, and I think that's playing out now. When you look at the NBA, there are more players from Canada on NBA rosters than any other country in the world except for the United States.
That's right.
It said something, and as to your point, and you and Kayla were talking about that, I said, I'm thrilled to hear about, Kayla's accomplishments, and I have a young daughter the same way that, played varsity sports, wants to get into, broadcast programming, and the next step after a terrific all-female broadcast is pure integration, where we have a broadcast, and it doesn't matter that people don't look at it as black or white or male or female or any other sect of society. It's total integration, and it doesn't matter. Person's there because they can do their job and they do it well. And
I totally agree with you. I totally agree with you. And you did something that no one else has done. You got Kayla to smile a while ago. You told her, this woman doesn't smile. You just got her to smile when you told about her accomplishments. She doesn't understand that you and I, as older folks, we appreciate her and we celebrate her and we want her to do well. And that when we see someone like this, we want to push them up and let them move forward. So she smiled when you told about her accolades. So thank you for that. Hey, bud.
Richard. And I'll say this: it's young people like Kayla. Like I said, she's 2 years older than my daughter. Mm-hmm. It's young people coming up now that are asking questions to help a guy like me find my voice. Because back in the day, we couldn't speak up. We weren't allowed to speak up. And now the young people are saying, well, why not speak up? And as the people with a little bit of knowledge and experience being kind of nudged by these young people to speak up.
Well, they know, Paul, they don't know any better. Paul, they don't know any better. They come into the society saying, I should be able to do this. I should be able to do that. We had to crawl and scrape to get that, but they come into a society where, hey, yeah, I can do that. That's mine. Why can't I do that? Mm-hmm. And so it's great for you and I agree. Let me ask you this, my friend. What was it like for you to finally see the Raptors win a championship? Because I know you must have been thrilled.
It was incredible, Richard. And I say this to both you and Kayla. There were times when, back in the early years when we were getting, the Raptors were getting throttled by the likes of Ewing and Oakley and Mason with the Knicks and Shaq and Penny and Stockton and Malone and Reggie Miller and the Davis boys. Like, you're in the NBA, but you're not in the NBA.
That's right. That's true.
Richard, it was like those days when we were at Oakland and we were playing teams that really had no chance to beat us. And Coach Thompson would play. He would start the bench, right?
Yes.
He would start the bench.
Yes.
And that's what it was like. The Raptors were in the NBA, but it was a different world playing against people like LeBron and the Heat. And they go 17 straight losses to them, haven't beaten them in 4 years. Like that. That's what it was like. And then you saw the turnaround. And every journey starts with the first step.
That's right.
And I believe the first step was hiring Dwayne Casey. And then playoffs. And then 23, 34, 48, 49, a consistent playoff team. And then the trade put them over the top. And Richard, when the buzzer went for the Game 6, and I was standing on the floor in Oakland, and it was time to get on the court to do the interviews, people ran by me, and I froze. Yeah. And as we would say in Jamaica, I looked in my head, I was saying, what is this? What a thing. I could not believe.
You couldn't believe it.
They were rolling out the trophy, and I looked up there and I said, wait, that's Kyle with the trophy.
Wow.
That's Masai up there. It was crazy, Richard.
Goosebumps.
Literally. And I made sure that I had the trophy for a day, and all the people I could find that were on my basketball.
Did they give you a ring?
Yes, I got a ring.
What?
I got a ring.
Oh, I love it.
So, but I made sure that all my people that were on my basketball journey with me got to touch or got a picture with the trophy. I brought it to golf courses. I phoned friends. I brought it to people's houses. Because we don't know when we're going to see it again. It's coming like the comet. You don't know when it's coming back.
For sure. So I was interested to know now, seeing, especially from when the Raptors first started, and I think it was a big thing, like a lot of players played, like people were playing hockey, like in terms of understanding and seeing what the NBA possibly could be. It was a new team, but now that it's been around for so long, have you felt that culture, and with the Raptors, or just in general, when it comes to basketball in Canada, what do you think it looks like now compared to then? Or even what do you think like the future could be potentially?
It's in a great place, Kayla. When I first moved to the suburbs, I couldn't, Richard knows me from Oakland, and I live 2 blocks from the school. Mm-hmm. I couldn't afford my father's and mother's house now. I can't pay that money. Mm-hmm. So I moved out to the suburbs, and I said, I'm going to take my kids to the park and play ball, and there was no courts, no parks. Mm-hmm. So we put a hoop up in the driveway, and we were one of the first ones. And now you drive by, everybody's got a hockey net and a basketball hoop in their back in their in their front yard. And the game has grown, and it's produced people like yourself, Kayla, and like a Natalie Achanwa, and all these people that are part of that generation. And there's like I said, there's a hockey net and a hoop in every driveway, and it's continuing to move forward, which is the good thing.
Yes.
Basketball is still growing. People are craving it. I mean, I used to have a basketball tryout where I got 20 kids. If you have a basketball tryout at a school now, you get
about 200.
and that's just another way for them to play, because they're probably already in some kind of rep ball or travel ball or club ball. So the game is growing by leaps and bounds, and I'm so thrilled. You know, people laughed at me when in 2000 I said that when Vince was doing his thing, I said, one day, it might not be my lifetime, but basketball is going to be as big as hockey. And
yes, sir. And it is now, because they came up with a stat the other day saying that basketball has surpassed hockey for young people. But here's what the hitch is in that. A lot of immigrant people that are coming here from all these countries, they cannot afford hockey stick, skates, equipment, rental of the ice time. Basketball is a cheap sport. Remember, Jewish people played basketball in America before black people played basketball. Well, it is a game of the poor. So if you look at all the old record books, Kayla, it's all Jewish names in there. And these guys were shooting with two hands, couldn't jump, didn't do anything. And then the black people started to play, Italians played, and now you get all these African kids. And as a Paul, you know this, those African kids are coming. Forget about China. China is coming, but those African kids are coming, and they're gonna be the next one to take over the NBA. Don't you agree?
Yes, it's the next untapped frontier, and a good friend of mine, Mike Brown, who coached LeBron, and he coached Kobe, and he was with Cleveland and the Lakers, and he's an assistant now in Golden State. He's just taken over the head coaching job with the Nigerian team, and it is the next Richard. I believe you. It is the next untapped entity when it comes to basketball, the continent of Africa.
Give me an idea from your perspective as a commentator for the Raptors. And Paul, everybody knows who you are now all over the world. I mean, people listen to basketball in Jamaica. They listen to basketball all over the world, Spain. So your voice is on there, you and Sherman. And I remember coming back in 2006, and I walked into the Raptors game. One of the kids I was training, his dad has seats right behind the Raptors bench, and I used to go with him. And when Sherman saw me, he was on the broadcast, his face lit up. And I didn't realize the impact that I had on people, because he said, hold on. And then he came after the broadcast and just ran to me. And it shocked me. I didn't realize the impact that I had with people like Sherman Hamilton and his name is Barrett's dad, because he brought his son up to my program in Oakville. You see, so I want to explain to those people out there, why do you think that people like yourself and bringing Sherman is a little younger than us, why do you think those people are doing so well, and why do you think that they remember us?
Well, because Richard, as we're seeing now, and Kayla can attest to this, there's people that you can reach out and touch, and there's people that look like you doing it, and it has to start somewhere, and it didn't even start. You guys will look at me, but it didn't even start with me. There's people like me and Harry Beard and Simeon Mars, and we looked up to the recently passed away Harry Brown, and people like that who. Guys that came up from the U.S., Chip and Nate and all these guys that came up from the U.S. and brought the game here, and we learned from them, and then you learned from us, and you just, it's like you look after the game, you put it in a bag, and you hand it to the next person and say, yo, mine with this bag, all right? Don't mash it.
Take good care of it.
Take care of it and give it to the next person better than you found it, and that's where we are right now.
That's amazing. Let me ask you this, though, on a professional level, because Kayla and I are aspiring to what you're doing now. And this platform is a way for us to reach a lot of people who may not watch other folks on TSN or ESPN. Can you help our audience learn, how do you prepare for a broadcast? And how do you go about that? Because Kayla and I are learning now, and we want to hear from you.
Well, it's intense, Richard. I mean, it's the same way you would prepare for a game. You watch video, you learn your stats, you talk to coaches, you talk to players, you review personnel. There are things that you need to know, you need to have at your fingertips. You can't just you can't just say jump up and say, oh, I'm going to go talk about the game. I mean, when the Raptors play Phoenix and Cameron Payne starts making jump shots, you talk about an improved jump shot because he was never that great a jump shooter because we saw him in Toronto. And when I talk about the Raptors last year being the number one team winning percentage in games that are plus or minus 3, one possession games with a minute to go, Toronto had the best winning percentage. This year they're 27th. Like, those things take research. It takes time to do that. And also you have to tell stories too. You need to know things about people. You know, I just got off the phone with my brother. Toronto traded Terrence Davis to Sacramento, and we started talking about him. I told him how he played one game in the summer league for Denver, and Toronto saw him and said, shut him down. Here, sign this contract. You're with us now. You're not playing for them. So those are the stories, the humanizing stories that that people want to hear.
So it's not just Paul. It's not just command of stats. You're saying and numbers. You're saying we have to weave a story within the broadcast. So a person who's not a serious basketball person can listen to the broadcast and learn something. Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely, because when I'm talking on the broadcast, I think of it this way: at both ends of the spectrum, I'm talking to my, I'm talking to, my mother. Or I shouldn't say that's a bad example because my mom knows the game. I'm talking to somebody's mother-in-law that is just learning the game because the Raptors are popular. But I'm also talking to Mike Cates and Richard Stewart and Rocky Llewellyn and people that know the game. So I have to be able to relate to both of them. I was asked yesterday about Norman Powell. He said on his first interview with Portland, he said, he's talking about nicknames, and he said, well, one of my nicknames is a general, and the girl said, Brooke Ozendam, one of my colleagues in Portland, said, I really like that. He said, okay, well, you're going to have to fight Jonesy about that one, because I gave him the name. And he said, well, why did you give him the name? I said, well, two of the most famous generals in American history have his name, Norman Schwarzkopf and a Jamaican American, Colin Powell,
Jamaican man.
So I said to Brooke, I've named him the general because of those two men, but also his game is like a general. He has a big heart. He's not afraid to lead, and he's always in charge.
Yes, I see that too.
Yeah, thank you. I think, just to kind of wrap it off in terms of my thoughts, just a brief question because I know it's loaded, but we've been talking about it earlier. When it comes to the women's game, what is your perspective on things that can be possibly done to help improve, some of those gaps that we're seeing in terms of like the NCAA tournament and social media, I think helps. But from your perspective, what do you think that as my generation we can do to continue to try and close that wage gap or just make, women's sports more of the forefront of what people are interested in potentially watching?
I think just keep pushing the envelope, Kayla. It's we're striving for equality and diversity in all areas. Be it basketball, be it life, everywhere. And I think that's one of the keys with the younger generation. I used to teach a unit in grade 8 when I taught kids on a book called Animal Farm, which was a parody of the Russian Revolution, but it was about animals.
I remember that book.
And the two words always go together, Kayla, Richard: conflict and change. When one comes, the other shows up. When you want change, there's going to be some conflict. And when there's a conflict, it usually results in some change. So I think what you and I said, I'm a big golfer now. I can't run and jump anymore. I love to play golf. And it's something I can play hopefully as long as I can walk till I'm 80, 90 years old. But if life is a golf game, Kayla, I'm about the 14th, 15th hole right now. I'm coming to the end of the game at my age. And the people like you and Richard, You guys are on the first or second hole. You're just starting. There's still lots of time. So you guys need to keep, taking what was done before and saying, okay, let's keep moving the ball down the field. Let's keep getting the ball up the court. And it doesn't matter how we do it, as long as it's respectful. But realize, as Dr. King did, when you ask for change, there is going to be some conflict, and be prepared for that.
That's an amazing way to phrase it. And I love the way you put that forth, because I really believe that adversity causes change, conflict does cause change, and it's for a reason. And one of the things that I've learned from you and from seeing your brother do things and the generation before me is that you paved the way. You know, things were said to guys, racist things were said to guys, and you persevered. So then when my turn came to play for the Canadian national team, I knew how to conduct myself. When my dad was saying, hey, speak proper English. Well, why can't I speak Jamaican? I suppose he says, no. This world, I want you to have some things in this world. And so preparation and watching other people do this is thing. It brings me to a story, though. There's a man that I ran into. I didn't know this man. I was at doing a basketball thing with On Point Basketball, and a man came up to me and said, hey, Richard Stewart, you changed my life. And I said, what are you talking about? I don't know who you are. What did I do? He said, I saw you at the St. Mike's tournament, and you walked up to the referee, you shook his hand, and said, hey, how's your family? How's everything going with you? And he said, you are a kid, and I'm a kid, and I hear you speaking that way and asking the referee these things. I don't think it changed. He said it changed my life. I then started to converse better. I started to use proper English. I started to look at people differently because the referee was white, and you as a black player did that. Little things like that I learned from you guys, the way you carried yourself, the way Mark carried himself. And I just want to thank you for that. And again,
well, Richard, it's about building bridges, right?
Yeah.
And my dad passed away. I'm lucky that he got to see the championship. Mm-hmm. He got to see the parade before they called his number. Mm-hmm. And he was like that with us, the same way that you are talking about. Like, integrate yourself, learn the system, but that doesn't mean you can't be proud of where you came from.
That's
and
right.
I grew up in a very Jamaican household.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
But when I stepped out, I knew I had to be part of society in a proper way, and it's interesting. We were never allowed. Well, I shouldn't say never. We were rarely allowed the patois in our day outside of the house, and there are people that have no idea that I'm Jamaican. I got a story for you. Jason Corwan, my good friend from G98.7, who was working at Sportsnet. We did something for the NBA All-Star Game. Mm-hmm. And something happened during a commercial, and I knew our director was Jamaican because I'd worked with him at TSN, and now we were working at Sportsnet. But I didn't know Jason was Jamaican until something happened in the commercial, and he dropped a piece of patois, and I looked at him, and he looked at me. He said, "Do you understand me?" I said, "Every word."
You know what?
It's people like that, Richard, like yourself.
Yes.
Like, you just learn the system.
Yes.
Be proud of who you are, but let's learn the system and try to build a bridge so that we can have an understanding here.
You know, something that interests me in what you were talking about in terms of educating young people and speaking properly, learning the vernacular, increasing your knowledge, increasing your vocabulary. And a lot of things that I do, Paul, with kids is I say to them, read Psalms 91. Every morning, I give kids things to do to help them increase themselves, whether it's spiritually or intellectually. And again, these are things that people don't know about us, and that's why this platform, this show that I started, touches on basketball, touches on current events, touches on people, helping others. It's not just about laughing and joking and talking basketball, but I want to touch on everything to help people. And I'm so grateful for you. Let's switch back to the Raptors again. Who is your favorite Raptor of all time? I'm going to ask Kayla that story. Kayla knows who her favorite Raptor is. Let me hear yours.
I don't know if I could pick one, Richard, having been with the team from day one.
Sure.
Some of the older guys in the first year. First of all, I'm a big Isaiah Thomas fan. He hired me and helped get me going.
Nice.
Him and John Bittove. Eddie Pinckney, who was at one time the most outstanding player in the Final Four for Villanova, is one of my favorite Raptors. He jumped center on night one, and Eddie and I are still very tight. He's been through, coaching Chicago and Miami, and Eddie and I are still tight. And I would have to say some of the more recent guys. Vince Carter, Alvin Williams.
Okay.
I love the way the way Kyle plays. I'm a big Norman Powell fan. I don't know if Antonio Davis has been terrific.
Okay.
You know, and another guy that I'm still in touch with. He was the first guy that said to me when Fred VanVleet came to training camp, he said, "Watch out for this kid." I said, "Really?" He said, "Yeah, he played with my son in the Chicago area. He's a heck of a player." And here we are. So Fred's another one, a great young man, just terrific.
Well,
so
I'll throw this out to you. I think Kayla's favorite player is VanVleet, but I may be wrong. Go on, tell me, Kayla, who's your favorite Raptor?
Of all time, or well, I mean, this is hard. I mean, we're talking about right now. I definitely, obviously, as a point guard, I gravitate towards. You know, my eyes are automatically gonna follow the point guard when I'm watching a game.
Mm-hmm.
So the way he plays is great. You know, he has the outside shot. He's doing multiple things on the court that just solidifies and makes sure the team, you know, is running correctly. But again, I watch TJ Ford. I watch, you know, Jose Calderon.
Nice names,
you know, and like Alvin Williams, like all those guys. Like when it comes to being a guard, like I watched the Suns games, and I'm watching the Suns and Raptors game yesterday, and I'm watching Chris Paul, and regardless of his, I guess you could say, upper age in terms of the NBA, watching him score 19 points and his efficiency, the step back, the stops, and just beating those bigs off the dribble, you know, so
he controlled the game like a maestro, didn't he?
Yes. I mean, it's beautiful to see because, you know, I take pride in that position. But, yeah, Richard, to answer your question, that wasn't really an answer because, like Paul, there's too many great players to choose from, but that's my spiel.
Hey, you know something, Paul? Let me run something by you here, and Kayla. Kayla may disagree. She may agree, and you may disagree. Here's what I saw happen to the Raptors. When Kawhi Leonard came here, he was an unknown quantity. Why? He did get an MVP for the finals with San Antonio, but be that as may, 2 years he languished there. And people were questioning him about his not being able to get along with Popovich when everybody else in the world did. And when we brought him here, people were questioning whether or not he can be the player that we were looking for. He changed, here's my first point, changed Lowry from a guy who did not perform in the playoffs, but was a great regular season player, and he changed that whole ethos of that team. Number 1 point. Number 2, the Raptors did a great job with the 905 in bringing all these young players up. Dwayne Casey, you were talking about, who brought defense to the Raptors.
Yes.
That's number 2. My third point is this. Toronto had the best bench, and everything came together that year for them to win the championship. Great. Here's where I think they faltered, and just keep on following me, my friend. They faltered because they mortgaged the future, right, for the Greek freak, Giannis Antetokounmpo. And I thought to myself, that guy's not going anywhere. He's from a country and has family that he has to take care of. Milwaukee could give him more money than the Raptors could give him. And when they got rid of Ibaka, we never had a rim protector anymore. Boucher is great, I like him, but he's not a rim protector. Guys get through him because he's not strong enough. And when he goes to the basket, he's not strong enough sometimes. I love the kid, though. Canadian kid, I love the kid. That is where I see where the falter started, the cracks in the system started happening, along with Lowry losing a step in terms of defense, offensively, and as a mind. He's a great point guard, has a great mind, and a leader for the team. So I'm going along here, all the points I'm throwing at you. This is what I see happen to the Raptors. Remember, rotations, shots made, leadership, all that stuff started to falter. I said in the beginning of the year, Paul, that the Raptors are either 5th to 8th place team. That's what I said from the beginning of the year. And that's where I see them now. Tell me, my friend, dispassionately, what do you think?
I will say this, Richard, and you're right on in some of your points, and it's a generally accepted thing in the NBA. My line is, you buy the house, you pay the mortgage. The NBA is a Ferris wheel ride. Mm-hmm. And when you're at the top and you have a nice view, that Ferris wheel starts to move, and there's only one way to go because people are getting on at the bottom. And you start to, you look at all the great teams, the Spurs, the Heat, Golden State. At some point, the run ends. All good things come to an end.
Okay, I get your point.
And some of it is self
inflicted.
Self-inflicted because of salary cap and guys wanting other opportunities and more money, and some of that you can't help. So, the idea is to keep the window open as long as possible. And I'll say this, Richard, at least Toronto got a chip. There are teams I look at a team like the Houston Rockets that had that window open with Harden for a while, and they never got through it. They never got.
And the Clippers had a chance with Doc back then when they had the flying dunks.
Lob City.
Yeah.
And they never got through the window. And after a while, and I've talked to executives about this. They said, listen, the Raptors are going to have to retool. And that's expected, but at least you're retooling, and you know what it's like to be at the top of the mountain.
Yes. Do you believe that it's been a disadvantage this year for the Raptors to play in Florida?
I do.
Okay.
I do. I mean, it's been great for tax reasons and stuff, but that's not their arena. It's not their home, and I wouldn't say it's 72 road games, but boy, it's pretty close.
I agree with that point. Another question for you. Who would you say is the greatest basketball player of all time?
Oh, boy.
Kayla laughed at that one.
You're giving some tough questions here.
Throwing them at him.
Again, Richard, I mean, Bill Russell has more rings than fingers. And he might be one of the greatest winners of all time.
Yes.
And we know how hard it is to win one championship. We know how hard it is to go back-to-back. Michael Jordan won 3 in a row. Twice. And 6 times he won. 6 times he was the best player on the court.
Yes.
And there's an argument now for LeBron and his longevity and what he's doing, and I understand that. But in my eyes, and again, I don't have the same prism. I talked to venerable Wayne Embry, and he says the best player he ever saw was Oscar Robertson, who was the first man to average a triple-double. It's so hard, Richard, but in my era, and the prism that I'm viewing the game of basketball through, I would have to say Michael Jordan.
There you go. Okay, that answers that question. What do you think, Kayla? Who's yours?
Whew. You know what? Regardless, even from my prism, I would say I would agree with you. And even when you bring up those points of winning, 3 times in a row, being the best player on the court, doing it multiple times, you throw in just on the defensive end. As someone coming up, I didn't get to see him play on TV, so for me, that mirror image was going to be Kobe Bryant. So, in terms of what he's done and his ability, the multiple 50-point game, obviously we can't forget what he did to the Raptors as well. We don't even have to, necessarily say it out loud, but we all know because. So even growing up,
every point, Kayla, I called every point that night, all 81 of them.
Yeah, right. So It was funny growing up. We always watched the Raptors, but my parents were Bulls fans, and then they transitioned to Lakers. And I think they were just looking for that same thing, watching a player that was just dominating. So growing up, I got to see that and watch that. And for me, a lot of people. I remember in high school being at the lunch table having debates with guys, LeBron or Kobe, and I'd always stand strong in my stance.
That's right.
When it all is said and done, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. So when it's all said and done, right now I'll definitely say that Jordan has that. But there's people that are very, very close to attaining, and even who knows in the future. I would assume even himself, he'd want people to do even better than what he did in his career.
Well, something, Paul, I want to thank you so much for being on our program. I know you're a busy man with the Raptors, and you have to prepare for upcoming games, and you've taken time out to be on this broadcast. So from Kayla and I, we'd just like to thank you so much for being on this show, sharing your knowledge and your love, and you know that we love you and your family. So thank you, sir, and God bless you.
Richard, so proud of you and Kayla and what the younger generation is doing. As they say, keep going.
Thank you.
Thank you. And ladies and gentlemen, let's thank Paul Jones for being on the program. And you know what we say here at Advanced Basketball. Little things turn into big things. God bless you.